Stay tuned for Legal Straight Talk.
Is this reality? No, I don't feel okay. I need my kaleidoscope of colors to lead the way. I'm riding in my car and I'm coming on around the bend. It's a chase, this twisted race. I'll be on top again. I'm not gonna let you take me down. It's gonna be the whole 9 yards or nothing.
Hi, I'm Tom Mealy, and welcome to another edition of Long Island Straight Talk. You know, over the past several weeks, we've had all different types of attorneys, and we talked about different areas of law. While my partner Brett is down in St. Thomas enjoying the weather down there, and we're up here in the rain, I'm going to be filling in for Brett today. But I have a very, very special guest today. And this is an area of law that we have really never gotten into, which is going to be kind of interesting for the people that are in the world of entertainment. Now, we know over at the studio, we're always having shows, different type of shows regarding entertainment. And the question always comes up, well, how do I protect myself? Or what do I need to do? So we're going to sit down today. We're going to talk with Stephanie Ovadia out of South Hempstead, and find out what it takes, to be a entertainment attorney, and what it takes for the people who are the entertainers to protect themselves in a world like we have today, especially with the internet. You know, it's so easy to get onto the internet and download a song, and you wonder, well, you know, am I protected with that song? Is somebody going to steal the song? How do I copyright certain issues? How do you copyright yourself? How do you do this? Well, we're here today with Stephanie Ovadia. And Stephanie, I want to welcome you to the show today.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here.
Entertainment law.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, you know, that's an area that we've never really gotten into before. You know, we have so many people that come to the studio that perform, and in upcoming performers that today, I mean, we've had everything from 7-year-old little kids to adults. You know, just recently I had the opportunity of speaking with a group who I believe that the oldest member of the band was just knocking 80 years old.
Wow.
And in his lifetime, he's just now getting into it. But to hear this guy sing was amazing.
Isn't that
I mean, he
something?
had, what a set of pipes. So from an entertainment point of view, or from a legal point of view, just give me a brief overview of what you do as an entertainment attorney.
Well, I'm sort of, it's funny because as an entertainment attorney, most of the people who come to me are starting out. So I'm definitely an advisor of sorts. I start from the beginning, and that's what I want to do tonight. I want to tell everybody who's out there, who's thinking about the entertainment field, where to start and where do you start. Most important thing, and I'm going to tell you the absolute most important thing, is your name. It sounds like such a simple thing, but a lot of people don't use their birth names. They choose another name. Most important thing is that you choose a name that you can have a couple of different things happen at the same time. Number one, you want to trademark that name. Very important, because that becomes who you are.
Regardless of whether it's your birth name or an entertainment name.
Right. Well, the entertainment name becomes your name. I mean, you don't know very many people's names other than their entertainment name.
Well, let's take somebody like, I don't know, Dean Martin.
Okay.
All right. Now, Dean Martin, he had his name, Dean Martin.
Right.
But then you have somebody like Cher.
Right.
I
don't know Cher's name. Do you know her name?
I don't know her name.
I don't
So
either.
is it better to utilize your birth name, or is it better to utilize a stage name? But whatever name you choose, you stick with.
Right, you stick with. Well, you know
You
what?
mark it,
it's an
you
interesting-
brand it.
Right, but it's an interesting point to bring up because there's a singer, Lana Del Rey. I don't know if you've ever heard of Lana Del Rey.
No.
She's a young singer. This is Lana Del Rey. And she started out with the name Lizzie Grant. That sounds like an okay name to me. But as Lizzie Grant, Lana Del Rey couldn't sell records. She just couldn't sell records because Lizzie Grant didn't work. But Lana Del Rey is a star. So the name...
So Lizzie Grant was her real name.
Her real name.
And Lana Del Rey is her stage name.
Right.
She couldn't sell records as Lizzie...
Grant, which she tried. She originally came
What
out with her
causes
real
that?
name. I don't really know. You know, it's that Shazam, that ba-ba-ba-boom. You need that name. And that's why I wanted to come out here tonight and talk about the name first, because that's the most important thing. And once you've chosen that name, there's two things you have to do. You have to, number one, trademark that name, because that becomes your brand. And today, branding is a big thing. I know when I was starting out and my friends were starting out, I don't think I ever heard the word branding, other than maybe for Coke and Pepsi and things like that. But today, your name becomes a brand. Look, Jessica Simpson. Look at all the products she's branded.
So for somebody like Jessica Simpson, all right, and I'm going to stop you periodically because
Go ahead.
I wonder about these things. With, you know, we spoke with a corporate attorney not too long ago, and if my name is Tom Mealy, and I do, obviously, you know, the radio commercial here on Long Island, and I always started the commercial office that said, I'm Tom Mealy from blah, blah, blah. I'm Tom Mealy from ABC. But I never trademarked the name. But if somebody else decided to do a commercial and say, hi, I'm Tom Mealy, even though Tom Mealy is not their real name, if they did that, do I have a cause of action against them since I already have been utilizing the name? Almost like a corporation. So if my name of my corporation is, I don't know, the Long Island View, and that's
Right.
my corporation. If I don't trademark that corporation, but I incorporate the corporation, and the somebody else decides to do the Long Island View, and they try to trademark that, don't I have a cause of action against them to stop them?
Well, it depends how you've legalized your name or that name, what steps you've taken, how long it's been in use, and what you have done to legitimize and legalize that name.
Is there a statute
Now-
of limitation for that?
No, there's no statute of limitations, but the best way to prepare yourself is, with a corporation, is to incorporate, because you're not going to be able to incorporate another company in New York with a similar name. However, if you look at Domino's, Domino's Pizza, Domino's Sugar, you know, Domino's is used, but for different things. So it really depends on what you're using this name for. But I suggest that before you start using your stage name or celebrity name or however you want to talk about it, you check two things. Number one, trademark. And number two, which is even more important today, is the website. You need to be
I agree.
able to get that website and to own that website, because that's how you brand yourself. All your information is coming out on your webpage. And that's why it's very important that you're able to do both those things. So, after you choose this name, you're going to check two things before you're going to say, hey, I'm whoever. You're going to check two things. You're going to check to make sure that you can trademark that name, that it's available, and you're also going to make sure that that website is available. Because if both of those are not available, choose a different name.
Let's get back to trademarks for a minute, because I think generally when people hear the word trademark, it throws up a flag of dollar signs. The reality is that to trademark a name really is not
Cheap.
that expensive.
$150.
It's very inexpensive. So for $150, you're securing the very slim probability that somebody can utilize the name. However, if you become a celebrity or a star out there 10, 15 years down the road, the trademark for $150, $200, whatever
Right.
it is, was a very worthwhile investment.
Absolutely.
So I would think that probably is a good thing to do.
Absolutely.
The other thing is with Facebook, obviously everybody knows that social media today is amazing.
Right.
With a flick of a switch, you know, when we broadcast, you know, we are all over the world. And you know, to send that via Facebook or G or any of the social medias is just such an incredible, powerful tool. And that having that Facebook name with your name is probably one of the smartest things, even before the trademark, I think, that you can do.
Well, Facebook, the thing with Facebook is, though, you could have a number of people with the same name on Facebook. There's nothing stopping from 10, let's say, Stephanie Ovadias. Okay, that's Facebook. There's a number of people that can have the same name. With trademark, there can only be one person with that name. And with a web page, a website, so www.
I'm sorry, website, correct. I was saying Facebook, right?
Okay. Yeah, you know what? There's so much social media,
I know.
your head can blow
you start
up.
to get confused.
Yeah, between Twitter and all these other things. But that's kind of the way it works. So there'll only be one website with Stephanie Ovadia, and that's
Right.
it. So I'll tell you something, just to sidetrack a little bit away from entertainment, but just something that people should know. When I named my children, the babies, my youngest ones, I looked for names, and I made sure that their names were available so that I could buy their websites.
Is that right?
I did, both of them. I have twins. My last two were twins. And what I did was I bought all my children's names so that they would all have their websites. Because now this is very funny, but my son, Daniel Ovadia, there must be a number of Daniel Ovadias, I've been offered money from at least 4 of them to buy my son's website from me.
Very interesting.
So it's
Very
important.
interesting.
It's very important today that you own that webpage.
I want to get into entertainment law from the perspective of a child. And is that child truly protected if that child is a young entertainer? So let's assume that for 1 minute we have a family out there that has a son or a daughter that is trying to break into the business through commercials, et cetera, et cetera. You help them become established. What is the difference between a child and having a parent sign on behalf of that child, and when does that become a non-binding issue if that child continues to grow in this business?
Okay, that's a good question. And normally, the way that works is that the parents will sign for the child until their 18th birthday. Some contracts today, I've noticed, and quite honestly, I don't know if there's any validity to this or if they're just trying to make the child aware of what's going on. At 14, they'll want the child's signature also, which is interesting, but I've started to see that. But the parents become responsible, and they have to make sure that this child is where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there.
And if the child, let's assume this child is 17 years old and didn't sign as a 14-year-old, and the parents now are still responsible for all the contracts.
For the contracts.
Is the
that's
child responsible for the
The
contracts?
child is not really responsible at that age until the age of 18. But a lot of times, these contracts will convert when that child is of the age.
And
where
you
they'll
set
sign
that
it.
up.
Yeah, we set that up.
So let's take one of the networks. Let's take The Big Bang Theory. Big Bang
don't know
Theory. You don't know The Big
No,
Bang
I don't
Theory?
know that show.
Oh my God! Everybody knows The Big Bang Theory. Okay, let's take a show that you picked. The show.
Well, let's pick one of the reality shows, because I've done a lot of reality contracts.
No, I don't watch reality TV. But yeah, don't get
Okay,
it.
let's pick Housewives, any one of the Housewives
Okay,
shows.
let's take. I really don't watch Housewives either. But anyway, let's take a Housewives show. Let's say that show is airing, and all of a sudden they see this young star, and they want to now contract with Betty Jane to be on the series. Tell us how you go about securing her position on that show.
Okay, well, first of all, a child just doesn't come on the show. That's just not the way it would happen. They would have an agent, and somehow the show would put out that they're looking for a certain type of child, and they would put it out to all these agents, and an agent would have a child, and they would all come and test for the show. Now, the child will normally have an agent. They'll normally have a manager, because if they're already at that level of going on to a show, they've done a few other things in the past. So they'll have an agent, they'll have a manager, and a lot of times they'll even have a lawyer. And that's how it would start. They would contact the agent would then have the child come and test for whatever show this is for. And then they would make a decision. They would go back to the agent would go back to the parents would discuss it with the agent. They would talk about money and, what type of, what this is. And that's really how it would come about. Now, the child the parents will always have the right to put in these contracts that they can break this contract. Because unfortunately, it's not like an adult. With children, things change. And sometimes you need to have escape clauses depending on certain
With
things.
a lot of networks, do they want those?
No, they don't, but I try and put escape
So,
clauses into those type of contracts.
Aren't you jeopardizing the child's possibility of getting the role?
You are. Well, that's in everything, because every contract any contract that comes from
I don't know,
any...
if I was a producer, and let's say I'm doing The Housewives, and I had 2 children, and I'm very interested in both those kids, and one had an escape clause and the other one didn't, I would be a little leery about taking the one with it.
It depends. You may want that one may be more talented and you're willing to take it with an escape clause. It depends. Sometimes they are willing to take the escape clause. But a lot of times what happens, I'll tell you, the reality of the situation is the network hands you a contract that's this tall, and you're so happy to get that job and to get that contract, you don't even hire a lawyer. You don't hire a manager. Your
That's very
agent got you.
dangerous.
It is very dangerous, but you would be surprised how many people sign
Without looking at it.
at the dotted line.
Well, I
They-
always say how many people actually read their insurance policy, and I only know one, and that's my father.
Right,
You
there
know,
you
my
go.
father-in-law, actually, well, now I know two, because
What
we have
made him
somebody
read
in
it,
the
though?
audience raising his hand, and why I'm not surprised at this person that he read this insurance contract. But, okay, let's take somebody like myself.
Okay.
I'm walking down the streets of Manhattan. All of a sudden, a producer comes up to me, and he says, wow, I like the way you look, I like the way you built, I like whatever the case may be. And this has happened many times. I mean, that one guy who just died recently, big, muscular guy, he was on Armageddon, the movie, I can't remember his name. They actually found him as a steam worker in New York City. He used to work in the, where those big grates in the street, the smoke grates. What am I thinking about here?
Sewer grates.
The sewer grates.
Okay.
They saw this guy come up, and they saw the size of him, and they casted him for a show. Here's a guy who's never acted before, never even thought about show business before. What do you say to somebody like that?
What would I say if he came to me, or what does the
Well, let's
producer
say now all of a sudden the producer says, I want you. I like the way you look. I think that you have, he played in The Green Mile
Okay,
with Tom Hanks.
okay.
I don't know, did you watch that movie?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. But how do you advise somebody like that?
Well, the first thing, they would have to present him with a contract. And then we would have to go through it point by point. You have to go through these contracts very, very carefully, because they each have their own little thing that you have to look out for. And I've seen the strangest things in some of these contracts that you would not believe, some of the ideas that lawyers and studios put in contracts. Because, of course, they want it to be for their benefit. And they want to lock up a talent. If they say, wow, this guy's amazing, look at him, he's sensational. They want to lock you up for as long as possible and with the best terms for them. So that when you are big and famous, see, when you start, they're not making money off of you. They're not, because you're not going to bring anybody to the theaters, because nobody's coming to see you. You're not, Tom Hanks or somebody that's going to bring, traffic. But after the first movie, you could be a breakout star, and then you're worth something. And at that point, you're already locked up into a contract that you can't get out of for 5 years, making very little money. And you also have to think about merchandising, and I mean, there's a whole
So there's a lot involved with it. I think that the glory of wanting to be, there's an old expression that for every, I think 9 out of 10 people want to be in front of the camera, because they want that exposure. They
Right.
want to be the next Brad Pitt or Jennifer Lopez
Right.
or
That's
whomever,
true.
and they fail to hire an attorney to look through the contract, because everybody wants that stardom. They
They're
think
afraid.
that that's the golden goose,
They're afraid.
and they're afraid of losing.
Right. Well,
Right.
I'll tell you about one of my clients, exactly what you were saying. I had a client who was chosen for one of the big shows, and she gave me the contract. The contract was this big. I would say 2 inches of paper. I couldn't imagine what could be in this contract. It's 2 inches. This is someone who's never been on a show before. I'm reading through the contract, and it's getting worse, and it's getting worse, and
And
it's
worse
getting
in
worse.
which capacity? What
Everything.
would make it worse?
There-
They just
there
hired
was-
this girl, an unknown,
Okay.
to do a great show.
They'll give her the $5,000 up front, and then she'll never see any money. Never. Because they talk about net profits, and that's something else we should talk about. What is net profits? I'm going to ask you, what does net profits mean to you?
Well, I mean, I know what net profits is, but net profit is everything that's left over after the expenses. So, am I right?
But what are expenses?
That's the point. All right, what are the expenses, and how do you prove that? You know, I
Right.
mean, if a show said that, you know what, you're going to have a 2% of the net profits when it's all over with.
Right.
If the movie grossed X amount of dollars, because you always hear that this movie
Well,
grossed
worth
this,
millions
the
and
movie grossed
millions
this,
of dollars.
but at the end of the day, the profit of that 2% of whatever the profit was that it took them to make, it could be minimal at best.
At best, if
I
not
have
a loss.
I have a good friend of mine who is the executive producer on The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke.
Right.
And he told me that when he put this together, he lost. He didn't make much money on this,
Right.
and he was the executive producer for it. And I think that it was because he didn't really he didn't present the documents to somebody who could have advised him in the right way.
Right.
I'm assuming that that's what happened.
Right.
So it's very important that for all of our audience that are out there that, you know, and let's get, everybody wants their kids in show business today.
Right.
I don't know, I don't, but I mean, but a lot of people do. But, you know, they want their kids to be behind the camera and to be, you know, on in Hollywood and et cetera, that the most important thing is to run that contract past the lawyer, because the end result may be more devastating
Right.
than the reality of it.
Right, especially if you're locked up for a very long time. And the way they do that is they'll do a 1-year contract, which is fine. You know, you think to yourself, okay, it's 1 year. And then they'll do options. Now, to the general public, they see options. They're like, oh, options. That means maybe, maybe not. I don't have to. Not that important. Well, if they say that they have options, it's at their option. So if they want to lock you up a 2nd year, a 3rd year, and sometimes it goes to 5 and 6 years, you could be locked up for all those years.
It's their option.
At their option. It's not at your option, it's at their option. And the problem is the general public doesn't understand the word option. They think that's maybe, like a maybe word, you know? But option...
It's optional. It's not optional.
It's not optional.
Option is completely different.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's some, you know, very, very important things that I think that people have to look at. And I know that even, you know, the shows that we do, you know, I have certain contracts that I like people to sign, and just to protect me
Right.
from certain issues. But if you were to give the audience advice on their kids, if they want to get them into show business or commercials, what would the best piece of advice that you could give?
Okay, the best piece of advice would be to deal with very reputable people. You need to deal with a reputable agent. You need to deal with a reputable manager, and you must. There is under no circumstance should you sign a contract for your child without an attorney reviewing that contract. Because first of all, you have to make sure, this is another point that I brought pages because there's so much to talk about in
Right.
such a short period of time. The percentages. I mean, you have to be very careful with the agent, with the manager, with the lawyer, because aside from the net profits, there may be nothing left if you sign for these crazy percentages. Some of these people could get percentages up to 25%, and there'll be very little left. Another thing, and just another point to the audience to think about before you sign one of these contracts, you need to carve out what you did before so that it's in black and white, that nobody is going to get a piece of what you did before. That's yours alone, without.
That's an amazing, I didn't think of that.
It's very important, and you know how many people then end up sharing in profits that they were making before they even began.
That they even had anything to do.
Yeah.
We have a few minutes left. Last thing, talent agencies.
Right.
The word just has smoke coming out of my ears. About 15 years ago, my wife somehow talked me into going to this talent agency.
Okay.
And all they did was soak me for about $3,000.
For pictures.
I got nothing
for
out of it.
Headshots,
I
right?
got nothing out of it.
Right.
Nothing. I got one call. They wanted me to do a commercial for the guy who was the governor of New Jersey, Beard. I can't remember his name. I forget who he was. But anyway, they wanted me to do. They wanted me to portray him. Corzine.
Oh, right,
In
okay.
a commercial. And it was the most ridiculous commercial that I've ever done in my entire life. In fact, I walked off the set. They wanted me to wheel a wheelbarrow in with a bunch of money in it, and I was supposed to be Corzine with the wheelbarrow.
Oh, my goodness.
And about after the second or third, I said, you know what, I've had it. I'm out of here.
Right.
And that was the last thing I ever did for them. But to this day, somehow they still call me and
The
say,
talent agency?
they text me. I've had my phone number for years. They text me and they say, we have a movie coming up with X, Y, and Z in it. We want you to read for the part.
Right.
It's garbage.
Right.
It's garbage. What do you have to say about these talent agencies? How do you know if it's a real one or a fake one? Or how do you know if they're just not taking you for your money, if it's a scam?
I haven't had too much to do with talent agencies because my clients usually have agents. But I know I read recently in the paper about a scam that was going on in the malls. They were coming up to you if you were walking with children. Did you hear about this?
I heard something about that, yes.
And they would say to you, your child should be in the movies, and then they would set you up with a photographer.
Yeah, for all of this nonsense.
Right,
yeah.
and it's sort of the similar kind of situation.
Stephanie, we've just reached the
I
threshold
know that I have so much
of
more.
what we need to do here. And, I would love to have you back, but unfortunately, we're running out of time. There are so many scams out there.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many important issues that I think that people have to realize if they're going to get into this business.
Right.
If they needed to reach out to you, how do they do it?
They can call me directly on my cell phone, 516-971-2041. My office is at 1080 Grand Avenue. That's South Hempstead, and I would love to help you.
Yeah, like I said, everybody wants to be in the movies these days, and everybody wants to be in front of the camera. It could be a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experience, but you have to remember, be careful before you leap. If you leap first, you could lose all that you've worked so hard for. If you reach out to an attorney like Stephanie, have her just review that contract. Have her go over the contract in detail. There may not be anything there that's worth being concerned about. But in the event that there is something, and she just explained to us how many serious issues can be hidden within these contracts that they don't want you to see, reach out to her, make sure, be safe, get that email address, very important, get your name trademark, and start your career off on the right foot. I'm Tom Mealy for another edition of Legal Straight Talk. We'll be back next week. Have a wonderful week. Talk soon.
Hi, I'm Jerry Parisi. Join Tom Mealy and Tommy Marr right here on Cablevision Channel 20 each week for an interesting episode of The Long Island View.